I want to tell you something tonight, that most men and women go their entire lives without ever truly understanding. Not because it is hidden, not because it is complicated, but because it is so close, so thoroughly woven into the fabric of everything you have ever experienced, that you have walked past it 10,000 times without seeing it. Like a man who has spent years searching for his glasses, and they have been sitting on his face the entire time. Here is the thing, you have never, not once in your life, lived a single moment outside the law. The law has been operating in you and through you and as you since the moment you drew your first breath. It was working when you did not believe in it. It was working when you had never heard of it. It was working in the quiet, unexamined grooves of your daily thought, producing, with absolute and impersonal faithfulness, the exact life that matched the assumptions you were carrying inside. And I suspect this very deeply, that if you are here tonight, it is because some part of you already knows this. Some part of you, beneath the noise of the day and the weight of the circumstances and the long years of trying things that did not seem to work, some part of you has always known that the world was not happening to you. It was happening from you. You simply had not yet found the language for it. And so you lived with a bewilderment that no one around you could quite explain. You watched other people move through lives that seemed charmed, that seemed arranged by some invisible hand of favor, and you worked harder, and you prayed louder, and you were patient longer than patience has any right to be asked of a person, and still, the thing you wanted remained on the other side of a glass you could not find the door through. Tonight, I am going to show you the door. But first, let me show you why you could not find it. Let me show you what you were doing, what all of us do, before we understand, that made the thing we most wanted appear to retreat precisely as we approached it. You were waiting. And waiting, I tell you, is a declaration. It is not a neutral act. Every time you looked at your life and felt the absence of what you desired, you were making a statement to the only power in this universe that responds to you. And that statement was this: I am someone for whom this has not yet arrived. And the universe, which is simply and always the mirror of your accepted truth, did what any mirror must do. It showed you exactly what you had placed before it. The mirror does not judge you. The mirror does not withhold from you out of some divine arithmetic of merit. The mirror simply reflects. And if you approach it in the state of someone who is waiting, who is lacking, who is reaching across a distance for something that has not yet come, then the mirror will show you, with perfect faithfulness and no malice whatsoever, a world in which you are waiting, lacking, and reaching. This is not cruelty, this is the law. And the moment you understand it as a law, impersonal, reliable, available to every soul who will only use it, the moment this shifts from being a spiritual idea you find interesting to a lived truth you feel in your body, from that moment, your life begins to reorganize itself around the new instruction you are giving it. Now, I am not speaking to you tonight from theory. I never speak from theory. I speak to you from what I have lived, from what I have tested in the laboratory of my own experience, from what I have seen confirmed in the lives of hundreds of men and women who applied these principles and received results that the rational mind had no framework to explain. I was born in Barbados, the fourth of 10 children, and I came to this country, to New York, as a young man with nothing but a longing I could not name, and a sense, which I could not yet justify, that the world was a more extraordinary place than anyone around me seemed to believe. I studied with a teacher by the name of Abdullah, an Ethiopian rabbi, a black man of great wisdom, who first said to me something that I resisted for a long time before it became the foundation of everything I would ever teach. He said, "Neville, You are already in the promised land. I looked around at my life, and I said, Abdullah, I do not see it. He said, that is because you are looking with the wrong eyes. He meant the outer eyes, the physical eyes that see only the past, only what consciousness has already crystallized into form. He was pointing me toward a different faculty altogether, a faculty that every human being possesses, and most never use deliberately, the faculty of imagination. But not imagination as the world understands it, as a pleasant pastime, as a kind of mental vacation from the real. No, imagination as the only reality. Imagination as the substance from which all things are made. Imagination as God, the one creative power, dwelling in each of us, which brings into being whatever it dwells upon with feeling and conviction. I am asking you tonight to consider something radical. I am asking you to consider that the world you see around you, every last condition of it, every relationship, every number in the bank account, every pattern that has repeated so many times that it began to feel like your destiny, is not the cause of anything. It is the consequence. It is the outer form that your inner assumptions have taken. You are not the effect. You have never been the effect. You are the cause. And if you will take that in, if you will allow yourself to sit with the full weight of what I am saying, you will understand something that will quietly revolutionize the way you move through every remaining day of your life. You have never been at the mercy of the world. The world has always been at the mercy of you. I call it the law of assumption, not the law of effort, not the law of attraction, as though you were a magnet working at a distance, pulling toward you objects that exist somewhere other than yourself. No, the law of assumption, the understanding that what you assume, what you accept, inwardly, silently, without argument, is, not will be, is. You see, time as the world understands it, past, present, future, is a convention of the physical senses. But the imagination does not operate in linear time. The imagination operates in the eternal now. And when you enter, in imagination, the state of the wish fulfilled, when you genuinely feel yourself to be the person who already has what you desire, who already inhabits the life you are seeking, you are not rehearsing for a future event. You are creating a present fact. I know that sounds impossible. I know it runs against everything you have been taught about how reality works. The world teaches you, first the outer change, then the inner feeling. First the money arrives, then you feel prosperous. First the relationship appears, then you feel loved. First the proof, then the belief. I am telling you the opposite is true. First the feeling, then the fact. The feeling is not the reward for the change. The feeling is the cause of the change. The state you inhabit, right now, in this breath, in this moment that you are giving your full attention to, is the seed being planted in the soil of the infinite creative intelligence that underlies all things. And that intelligence, which I sometimes call God and sometimes call the imagination, and sometimes call simply the law, that intelligence does not evaluate the seed. It does not decide whether you have earned the right to plant it. It grows what is planted, always, without exception, without favoritism. This is what I mean when I tell you, life has no option but to deliver. Not because the universe is generous, though it is. Not because you are special, though you are. But because the law is impersonal. The law works for anyone who understands it and applies it. It worked for me. It has worked for hundreds of people I have known personally. It will work for you, now, in your particular life, in the specific conditions you are sitting in right now, as surely as the sun rises. But you must assume it. You must enter the state. This is the whole of the teaching. Everything else is commentary. Now I want to address the phrase that gives this talk its title, because it is almost universally misunderstood. Acting as if. When most people hear those words, they think of performance. They think of a kind of spiritual theater, of walking through their day with their chin up and their shoulders back, behaving in the external sense as though things are already different, hoping that if the performance is convincing enough and runs long enough, the universe will eventually take the hint and arrange the outer world to match the act. This is not what I mean. If you approach acting as if as performance, you will exhaust yourself, and more importantly, you will fail. Because the universe does not respond to behavior. It responds to state. It responds to what you are, inwardly, not to what you are doing outwardly. A man can dress like a millionaire, and speak like a millionaire, and still carry, underneath all of it, the deep, unconscious assumption of poverty. And the universe will find him, no matter how convincing the costume. The mirror shows the face. It does not care about the clothing. So when I say, act as if, I mean something entirely interior. I mean, be the person who already has the thing, inwardly. Feel what that person feels. Not the excitement of receiving something, that is still the feeling of it being outside you, still approaching. I mean the feeling that comes after arrival, the feeling of normalcy, the quiet, unglamorous, deeply satisfying feeling of something being simply and ordinarily true. Think of it this way. You do not every morning feel grateful that you have a left hand. You do not walk through your day marveling at the miracle of your fingers. Your left hand is simply there, a fact so ordinary, so thoroughly accepted, that consciousness does not stop to celebrate it. It simply uses it. That is the feeling I am pointing to. Not gratitude, not excitement, not the heightened awareness of something wonderful happening. The ordinary, bone-deep, unquestioned assumption that the thing is so. This is the state of the wish fulfilled. And when you inhabit that state, when you make it the quiet background of your daily inner life, rather than a peak experience you visit occasionally during meditation, the outer world has no choice but to rearrange itself around the new fact you have established. Because the mirror shows the face, and when the face changes, the reflection changes. Not gradually, not as a reward for sustained effort. The moment the face is genuinely different, the reflection begins its rearrangement. Let me tell you about something I have observed in every human life I have studied closely, including my own. There is a conversation happening inside you, right now, that you are barely aware of. Not the thoughts you deliberately think, not the ideas you consciously form and examine. Beneath all of that, running like a river beneath the ground, shaping the landscape above without being visible, there is a continuous interior monologue, a set of assumptions so thoroughly accepted that they have stopped seeming like assumptions at all. They have become the furniture of your mind, the air you breathe without noticing you are breathing. And this conversation is writing your life. Every moment of every day, this inner monologue is going out into the fabric of reality and placing its order. Not with the dramatic intention of a prayer, not with the focused attention of a visualization, simply by being the background hum of your consciousness, simply by being what you have accepted as true. Perhaps it says, people like me don't get ahead. Perhaps it says, I can never hold on to money. Perhaps it says, real love is something that happened to other people, or perhaps to me once, a long time ago, and it will not come again. Perhaps it says nothing as dramatic as any of that. Perhaps it simply carries, in every interaction with the world, a faint but constant sense of not quite belonging, of being on the outside of something. I am telling you, these are not truths. They are habits. They are grooves worn deep into the mind by repetition, by experiences that were interpreted in a certain way and then encoded as permanent. By things that were said to you, perhaps when you were very young, that you accepted before you had the wisdom to refuse them. They are seeds that were planted, in many cases, before you were old enough to tend your own garden, and they have been growing ever since. And the extraordinary thing, the thing that changes everything once you see it, is this. The inner conversation can be changed, not by force. You cannot argue yourself out of a deep assumption, any more than you can argue a river out of its channel. Force only produces resistance. It changes the way all deep things change, by entering a new state so fully, so genuinely, so quietly, that the old state simply has no more room in which to exist. You do not fight the old groove. You dig a new one. You make the new one so familiar, so natural, so thoroughly inhabited, that the old one fills in by itself from disuse. Begin tonight. Begin with the inner conversation you will carry into sleep. Because the state in which you fall asleep is of extraordinary importance. It is the state from which the subconscious mind takes its instruction during the hours when the conscious, skeptical, arguing mind has finally gone quiet. Neville, what should I say to myself as I fall asleep? Whatever corresponds to the wish fulfilled, whatever the inner conversation of the person who already has the thing would be, not gratitude for the having of it, that still implies surprise, still implies that part of you expected otherwise, simply the ordinary, assumed conversation of someone for whom this is simply their life. Of course it worked out. Of course I am loved. Of course there is more than enough. Not said with effort, not said to convince yourself, said the way you say things that are simply and obviously true, said from the inside of the state, not from the outside looking in. This is the inner conversation. Make it the background of your life, and your life will reshape itself around it, as surely as the earth reshapes itself around the root. Now, there is something I want you to understand about the world you see when you open your eyes in the morning. What you are looking at is the past. I mean this precisely. Every condition in your outer life, every circumstance, every relationship, every financial reality, is the materialized form of assumptions you held previously, some of them recently, some of them years ago, some of them so long ago that you have forgotten you ever held them, and so you look at the results of them and call them reality, call them the world, call them simply the way things are. You are looking at a photograph and calling it the present moment. The actual present moment, the only place where anything is ever genuinely created, is inside. It is in the state you are occupying now, in this breath, in the quiet space behind the eyes where feeling and assumption and imagination meet. This is where your future is being written, not in the actions you take, though actions will follow naturally from the right state, but in the state itself, in what you are currently accepting as the truth of your being. And so when circumstances appear that contradict what you desire, and they will, they always do, the mirror is always slightly behind the face. You have a choice that most people do not realize they have. You can accept the circumstance as reality, or you can recognize it for what it is, a reflection of who you were, arriving now to show itself to you, not as evidence of what is permanently true, but as the natural consequence of an old state, already superseded by the new one you have entered. Do not let the old reflection convince you that the new face has not taken hold. The photograph is always of the past. The camera does not shoot the future. You must hold the new state not because the outer world has confirmed it, but because you know the law. You know that the inner always precedes the outer. You know that the feeling is the cause and the circumstance is the effect. and you know that what you are planting now in the soil of your consciousness is already alive beneath the surface, already growing toward the light, even when the ground above it shows no sign. The farmer does not dig up the seed to check on it. The farmer knows. Let me return to something I told you earlier, because it bears going deeper. Abdullah told me that I was already in the promised land, and I resisted this, because I looked at my life, and my life did not look like a promised land. It looked like a young man in New York with empty pockets and a restlessness that had no obvious solution. But Abdullah was not speaking of the outer life. He was never speaking of the outer life. He was speaking of the imagination. He was telling me that the place I was seeking, the state of fulfillment, the land flowing with milk and honey, as the scripture puts it, was not a place I needed to travel to, not a condition I needed to create, not something I needed to earn by crossing a sufficient number of deserts. It was already mine, in imagination, right now. And the imagination, he told me, is not a lesser reality than the physical. It is not a rehearsal for the real thing. It is the real thing. It is the substance of which the physical is merely the shadow. I thought about this for a long time. I sat with it and turned it over and looked at it from every angle. And then I began to test it. Not with great drama, not with elaborate ritual, but with the simple, direct experiment of entering a state in imagination, and then watching to see what the outer world did in response. And the outer world confirmed it, again and again, with a consistency that the rational mind could not account for and could not dismiss. I tested it in my own life. I tested it with others. I have stood on platforms in New York and Los Angeles and lectured to audiences of skeptics, and I have asked them to try it. Simply try it, with the open mind of a scientist applying a hypothesis. And I have received letters from those people, months and years later, describing changes in their lives that staggered them. Not small adjustments, transformations. The appearance of opportunities that had no rational explanation. The healing of relationships that had seemed beyond repair. The arrival of abundance in situations that had seemed structurally impossible. Not because I gave them a technique, not because I gave them a practice to add to their morning routine, because they understood the law, because they entered the state, because they genuinely, in the quiet of their own consciousness, assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled and held it long enough and deeply enough that it became the new background hum of their inner life. And the outer world, which is always and only the mirror of the inner, rearranged itself around the new fact. This is what I mean when I say, life has no option but to deliver. The law is impersonal. It has no favorites. It does not reward the faithful and punish the skeptics, though the faithful, by virtue of their faith, tend to use it more consciously and therefore more effectively. The law works for anyone who enters the state, anyone, including you, particularly you. Right now, there is something I have taught that I want to speak about directly, because I believe it may be the single most powerful practice I have ever shown anyone. I call it revision. Each night, before you sleep, I want you to review the events of the day, not to judge them, not to analyze them, not to replay the ones that went badly with the hot breath of regret or resentment, but to revise them, to take an event that transpired in a way you did not want, a conversation that went wrong, a rejection that came, a fear that presented itself, and to replay it in your imagination as you wish it had occurred. Not as a form of self-deception, as a creative act, as a statement to the subconscious mind about what you are now accepting as the norm for your life. You see, the subconscious mind does not distinguish cleanly between the vividly imagined and the actually experienced. This is not speculation. This is something that has been demonstrated in laboratory settings, in the observation of athletes, in the lives of people who have healed themselves of things the rational world considered permanent. The imagination, entered with feeling, writes in the same ink as experience. And so when you revise, when you replay the day's events, and rewrite the ones that do not belong in the life you are now inhabiting, you are not lying to yourself. You are exercising the prerogative of the Creator. You are saying to the universe, that was the old pattern. It was an echo of who I was. This, what I am now imagining, this is what is actually true. And the universe, which is taking its instruction from you continuously, adjusts its aim. I do not want you to be passive in this. I do not want you to sit and wait and hope that the law will notice you. I want you to be the most active creator you have ever been. Not active in the sense of frantic effort, but active in the sense of conscious, deliberate, daily engagement with the only power that has ever actually changed anything in your life, the power of your own consciousness. Revise the day. Enter the state of the wish fulfilled as you go to sleep. Carry the new inner conversation through your waking hours. Not as a performance for the outer world, but as your genuine inner reality, the reality from which everything visible will eventually grow. I want to say something now that may surprise you, something I have not always found easy to explain, because it asks a great deal of the listener. The people in your life are, in a very real sense, your creation. I do not mean that they do not have their own consciousness, their own inner life, their own relationship with God. They do. But the versions of them that you encounter, the qualities they express toward you, the way they show up in your particular experience of the world, these are drawn out by your own assumptions about them. This has happened to all of us. You have met a man that someone else you know finds charming, and in your experience he is difficult and cold. You have met a woman that others find unavailable, and she opens toward you like a flower because of what you carry in your heart about her before you even speak. The same person, two different states of assumption, two entirely different human encounters. The people in your life are showing you, with great faithfulness, what you have accepted as true about how you are received in this world, about whether you are someone people value, someone people love, someone people are glad to know. Change the assumption. Watch the people change with it. This is perhaps the hardest thing I teach, because we are so attached to the idea that other people are fixed, that their behavior toward us is determined by who they are and what they have decided, independently of anything in us. And so we work to change them, to convince them, to win them over, to prove ourselves worthy of the response we want from them. But you will never change the reflection by touching the mirror. You can only change the face. If there is someone in your life who does not see you as you wish to be seen, if there is a relationship characterized by distance or dismissal, or a persistent sense that you are not quite enough in their eyes, enter the state in which that relationship is already what you desire it to be. Not in the outer world, in the imagination, tonight, in the quiet before sleep. Hear them say what you long for them to say. Feel what it feels like to be in their presence as the person they fully see and deeply value. Make this the inner conversation you carry about them, not the recording of how things have been, but the assumption of how things now are. And then watch, without grasping, without performing, without checking every interaction for signs of confirmation. Simply hold the state and watch what the mirror shows you. There comes a moment in the life of every person who begins to understand and apply these principles that I want to prepare you for, because it will come, and if you are not expecting it, it may undo you. It is the morning when nothing has changed. You entered the state last night. You fell asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You revised the day with care. You held the inner conversation of the person who already has the thing. And then you woke up, and you looked at your life, and it was exactly as it was. The bank account has not changed. The relationship has not changed. The circumstance has not changed. And the old voice, the voice of the familiar, the voice of the photograph, the voice of the world saying, "This is simply how things are," that voice will come, and it will be very reasonable, and it will say, "You see, nothing is happening. You are fooling yourself. This is not the way life works. Come back to reality." I want to speak to you in that moment, because in that moment, what you are experiencing is not failure. What you are experiencing is the lag, the natural delay between the inner change and the outer crystallization. The photograph is always slightly behind. The harvest always follows the planting. Not instantly, but certainly. The question is not, has it worked? The question is, have I genuinely entered the state? Not visited it, not performed it, genuinely inhabited it, the way I inhabit a room, not as a tourist passing through, but as someone who lives here, who expects to wake up here tomorrow, who has left their coat on the hook by the door, because this is simply where they are. If you have done that, if the state is real, if the inner conversation has truly changed, if the assumption is genuine, then the harvest is inevitable. It cannot be otherwise. The law is the law. The mirror will show the new face. The seed will become the tree. Stay in the state, not as effort, as knowing, as the quiet, unwavering, morning after morning certainty of the farmer who planted good seed in good soil in the right season, and who does not need to see the tree above ground to know that it is coming. It is coming. Life has no option but to deliver. I have spoken long enough tonight about principles and mechanisms and laws. I want to bring you now to something more immediate than any of that. I want to bring you to this moment. This exact moment, as you are hearing these words. Because here is what I want you to understand. Here is the thing that took me longer to truly absorb than almost anything else Abdullah showed me. The door is not on the other side of a sufficient period of practice. The door is not available only to those who have mastered the teaching or accumulated the right amount of spiritual understanding. The door is now. It is always now. It has only ever been now. This moment, as you breathe, as you feel your own presence, as you allow these words to settle into the part of you that has always known they were true, this moment is the creative moment. The only creative moment there is. The past is a photograph. The future is imagination. The only place where anything can actually be planted is the present inner moment of assumption. And I am asking you to make a decision in this moment. Not a dramatic decision. Not a decision that requires you to change anything about your outer life. Not yet. A quiet, interior, utterly decisive decision about who you are. I am asking you to decide, right now, in the privacy of your own consciousness, with no audience but the God who lives inside you. I am asking you to decide that you are the person for whom the wish is already fulfilled. Not that you will be, not that you are working toward it, not that you hope it will come, that it is, already, in the only reality that matters, in the imagination, in the inner world from which the outer world takes all its instructions. It is already done. Feel it. Feel what it feels like to be that person. Not the excitement of getting something, the ordinariness of having it. The quiet, settled, unquestioned normalcy of the life you desire being simply your life. This feeling, this specific quality of inward settled certainty, is the seed. And the seed, planted in this moment, in this breath, with this degree of genuine inner acceptance, this seed is alive. It is in the ground. It is doing precisely what seeds do. It is becoming, in the invisible inner world of consciousness, the tree that will appear in the outer world in its right season. You do not have to earn this. You do not have to deserve it. You do not have to have done sufficient penance for the years you spent in the wrong state. You simply have to enter the right state. Now, let me tell you where we have arrived, not where we are going, where we already are. I want you to let go, just for these remaining minutes, of everything you believe you still need to do in order to deserve the life you desire. Let go of the plan. Let go of the timeline. Let go of the careful monitoring of progress, the daily checking of the outer world, for signs that the inner work is producing results. Let all of that go, and notice what is here when it is gone. There is a place inside you. Call it the imagination. Call it the spirit. Call it the deepest level of your own being, that is not afraid, that has never been afraid, that is not waiting, because it already knows that everything it could ever desire is already present, already real, already here, in the only reality that will ever truly matter. This is the God I have been pointing to for the whole of my teaching life. Not a God outside you, keeping score and meting out rewards and punishments according to a ledger you have no access to. The God that is your own imagination, the creative power that dwells in you, that has always dwelt in you, that has been faithfully producing whatever you have assumed to be true about yourself and your life, not because it approved of those assumptions, but simply because that is what creative power does. It creates what you assume. And right now, in this moment, you can assume the best. You can assume abundance. You can assume love. You can assume health, freedom, fulfillment, recognition, peace, not as things you are working toward, but as things that are simply, quietly, already the truth of who you are. This is not positive thinking. This is not affirmation in the familiar sense of the word. This is something older and deeper and more radical than any of that. This is the knowledge, felt in the body, rooted in the heart, unargued with by the mind, that you are already, right now, in the promised land. Abdullah was right. He was always right. The promised land is not a place you travel to. It is a state you enter, and the state is available to you in this breath, in this moment, in the quietness behind all the noise of your daily life, where your own imagination waits, patient, inexhaustible, infinite in its creative capacity, waits for you to give it the one instruction that will set everything in motion. The instruction of the wish fulfilled. It is done. It is real. It is mine. Breathe into this. Let it settle through you, the way warmth settles through the body after coming in from the cold. Let it find the places in you that have been held tight with waiting and effort and the long labor of trying to deserve the life you want, and let it loosen them. Let it release them, because you have always been worthy. You were worthy before you knew about the law. You were worthy when you were making unconscious assumptions that produced results you did not want. You were worthy in every moment of confusion and failure and doubt. The universe did not withhold from you because of your worthiness or its lack. It simply reflected what you assumed. And now you are choosing what to assume. Now you are exercising the full authority of the Creator that you have always been. You are not becoming something new tonight. You are remembering something old. Something that has been true since the first breath, that consciousness is the only reality, that assumption is the only cause, that the inner world is the only world that was ever genuinely yours to work with. The outer world will follow. It has no other option. It is the mirror, and you have just changed the face. Act as if, not because you are pretending, not because you are performing, but because you now know what acting as if actually means. It means inhabiting the truth of the wish fulfilled in the inner world with the settled certainty of someone who has simply remembered something they always knew. And when you do that, when the state is genuinely yours, when the inner conversation has changed, when the assumption has taken root in the deepest soil of your consciousness, life has no option but to deliver. The law is not negotiating with you. The law is not waiting to see whether you are sincere enough, or spiritual enough, or consistent enough over a long enough period of time. The law simply is. And you who were made from and in and as the imagination of God, you simply are. Go now into that knowing. Carry it as quietly as you carry your own name. And let the world arrange itself around the truth of who you have just remembered that you are. It is done. It is done. It is done.